bitches scary cats, I call them Carol Baskins. Body, yaddy, 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 yaddy.
All right, you guys, today I have Annique coming on from Small World Brokerage. If you have not followed her on TikTok or on LinkedIn, you are missing out. She's got some great content out there. That's actually how I found her, was some content that she posted on LinkedIn. She is like very much like one of those real chicks, and those are the type of chicks that I like. So she's, kind of cuts through all these things, gives great advice. She's been in the industry for like 20 years, I think she says on here. She was a shipper first, then a brokerage. And she does a lot of education pieces and consulting and kind of all that stuff too. So if you guys are looking at taking your business to the next level, she's like a great person to speak to. Even if you're a carrier or brokerage, talk to her about how to really get your business from here to here. She's amazing. But she's got some great advice on here and even some new fraud tips, which is my favorite thing to hear, all the new fraud tips. So she does some cool stuff with that as well. She will be at Broker Carrier Summit with myself, so make sure you are attending October 27th. Actually, I'm sorry, October 28th through the 30th. Those are the correct dates. I will be there the 27th. But she's going to be part of a TikTok influencer house section, whatever. I don't know. There's some sort of cool way to say this, but hopefully I'll be joining and hanging out with those guys. I'm sure they're going to have a blast and have some cool content coming out. Be sure to follow her on all the things. Be sure to follow us on Tell Me Everything, LinkedIn, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, all the things that are out there. Be sure you're doing that if you're not already. I appreciate you guys following me and watching all of our shows. And also be ready for Freight Talk Network. That's coming out September 16th, where we're jumping on that. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be part of that as well. So be sure to follow that so you're not missing any episodes. All right, guys, so let's jump in it. And like I said, thanks again for watching, you guys. This is like such a fun opportunity to do it. And I could never do this without freaking amazing people like you guys. All right, let's jump in it.
Tell me everything. Everything.
Tell me everything.
Well, thanks for joining me. If you want to yeah, I know. If you kind of want to give a little bit about yourself and what you do and your name and all that jazz and how to find you on social media, I know we'll go over at the end too, but
I'm Annique. I'm the owner of Small World Ventures, LLC, and we are primarily freight brokers, but I am also a coach for brokers and carriers alike for sales and also just how to market themselves a little bit better. My idea behind this is if we make carriers or drivers better, then it's just a better offering to our customers. It's another level of customer service that we can provide to the people who are essentially paying our bills. So we train them the right way, train the brokers the right way so that they're being fair to the carriers, and hopefully create a better universe of brokering and freight that everybody can be happy with.
no, that's really cool. So I first found you on LinkedIn because I saw some of your content that you posted, and I guess you're viral on TikTok and all that stuff, which I still have to follow you. I need to do that, but I'm barely on there. I am on there, but I'm not on there like for freight stuff. So I need to like change my algorithm because right now it's like a bunch of teenagers dancing. So I need to update that.
Yeah.
But what made you get into like the TikTok space and start all of that?
Truthfully, gosh, this is so silly, but when I started my TikTok years ago, I was not making any kind of content. It was really just to share videos back and forth with my friends and my boyfriend at the time. And like a lot of women do when there's a breakup, they're like, I'm ring it all over the place. So the first few videos on my page are about breakups and just like normal life. And then one day I just made a video about what it was that I do, and the follower count went up. And I said, oh, wow, people have a genuine interest in this. And really, it's in my blood. It's what I do every day. It takes up the majority of my day. So why wouldn't I be talking about this?
Yeah.
It was a slow go for a while with people following me. And then I made one video that went viral. Went nuts.
Cool.
And it was about a double broker, somebody that I encountered that was trying to double broker. And that just went crazy. And from there, it just built and built and built. And
That's
the majority of my followers are truck drivers. I had this idea that I was going to like gain all these customers and everything through TikTok. Not the case. They're too busy sending their freight out and working with the people that they already have. But it has been just as rewarding to work with the drivers because they educate me as much as I educate them. And that makes me a better broker for my customers. It's not for naught, you know, if you're not getting a whole bunch of business from your ideal customer, find other things that will be rewarding. You make it what you want it to be. And that's all I can really advise on. But I am better because of it.
I think a lot of people look at everything as a ROI, like what's my return on investment? And it's like, it's not always like that. Like it could be where you don't know who you're going to meet in the industry or who knows who that can get you here, or just having like an open door, or like you said, just educating and kind of making the world a better place is also like it's like a whole different ROI of like your soul, I guess, as dumb as that sounds, but
No, that makes sense. It's all currency
yeah,
because you're investing in something. So if you're not getting anything back from it, then all you're really doing is making the silly dances on TikTok. But then to take it a step further, if you are engaging with people, if you're making this content and all you're doing is living in that comment section, then you might as well just say you play on the internet. You're not having conversations off of that platform. You're not making connections away from that. So call yourself a consumer of the content, but don't call yourself a creator and somebody that knows how to turn that over, because the turnover has to be there. That's the whole point of it. However it is that you turn it over, whatever it is that you make of it, that's your investment in it. So I see a lot of brokers that get caught in that back and forth comment section game. I'll message them to the side because I'm not going to embarrass anybody like that, but say, what kind of conversations are you having outside of the app?
right.
What do you look like? You're posting 5 videos a day. Good for you. I'm glad you have the engagement, and I know that you know how to be busy
Yeah.
because I'm
Working.
converting
Right.
conversations.
Yeah. You're making it a step further, which is big. So do you feel like your perception of being like a woman on as a broker, on TikTok, all those things has kind of made you better at what you do? Because that like I've okay, so let me back up 1 second. Whenever I was coming on to like the Broker Care Summit with my podcast, I was talking to Dan and he's like, yeah, we want you to do like a woman in logistics podcast. And I'm like, cool. However, I'm not the type of woman that's like, oh, woo me, I'm a woman and whatever. I'm like, actually I'm a badass. So I can outperform everybody else out there. And it really, to me, it doesn't have to do with being a woman, but it kind of does. Do you feel like that's made a big difference for you?
Well, I'll take it a step further. When I was growing up, we were always geared towards be a teacher or be a nurse or, be a secretary or even a bookkeeper, but never the CPA, never the high school principal, never an administrator, never a doctor. It was
Right.
always a support staff
Yeah.
of somebody with more credentials that could go even further. And I'm 46, I'm Gen X, the generations that are here now, the door is blown wide open for them. They
Right.
can't even fathom what it means to have a mom say, "Hey, slow your roll," or "Why don't you just go to, get an AA in nursing?"
Yeah.
You could just be a CPA or a CNA. So they have no concept of the limitations that are put on them. But our generation had to break through that. But at the same time, there was never a point where I thought that I had any kind of a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
So when I come into this industry and we are surrounded by men, I'm not just thinking that it's, a small fish in a shark tank or anything like that. I'm seeing it for what it is. This is not a male dominated industry. This is a male prioritized industry. This is a male upheld industry, and this is a male supported industry. But
Yeah. That's an
so
interesting way to
many
look at it.
brilliant minds behind what happens belong to women. And you see it, I see it even on social media when I'm doing something 6 months ago or a year ago, and now a man is doing it, or a man is like using my content to make themselves look good. It's like you need a woman behind you in order to, and not even just brokers, not even coaches or salespeople or anything like that. Even the women that are home
Yeah.
with with the truck drivers out on the road, keeping the house going, raising the kids.
It's a lot of work.
It's all a lot of work. They
Yeah.
would not be able to do the things that they do without the support of the women behind them. And organizationally and community minded, that usually falls on women.
Right.
If you are, my mindset and my motto is you can't compete with me because I want everybody to win. While they're going back and forth and they're like fighting at each other's heels, women are surpassing them because they are moving forward with their ideas because we don't have the support and we don't have the priority and we are not being upheld. So we have to do that for ourselves. And that makes us dangerous. And
I love
that makes us a force to be reckoned with. And they're not paying attention. They better start because
Well, I
I'm going
think
to take it all.
right. I know. I think that's an interesting point though. So every brokerage that I've ever worked at, whenever I was a broker, was if it was a male owner, there was either his wife was actually running the whole show, or it was, or like they switched. My second job, they switched to where it was a woman owner because they wanted to have that minority, status or whatever. But the point I guess I'm making is I feel like most men out there can take their business X far, but being like innovative and like kind of like you said, growing a community and getting things to go much further, that does take that multitasking mind. It takes the support and nurture and kind of the things that women are great at. And I don't like to put women in a box or men in a box, like I think I can do everything a guy can do, they can do it, I can do like that whole thing. But I definitely feel like it is a different priority, I guess, for women where it's where, hey, I can see you doing this and I'll support you doing that. But what if you tried this, this, and this? Because you're kind of like an outsider looking in a way. And I think that's really why so many women are doing like surpassing men in so many industries, not just logistics.
On a psychological level of it too, how often do men ask for help? How often do they say, oh, this is a problem, but I'm going to adapt around it instead of addressing it and
Yeah.
having somebody who
Asking for
might know better
directions.
than me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of them are still saying MapQuest, what's that? But I just see it as so many times drivers are like, wait until shippers figure out that like brokers are doing this and we're just going to show up at these places and we're going to take the freight. And I'm like, well, why haven't you?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
there. You're showing up to drive anyway. Why aren't you doing it? Because you are still approaching these people as truck drivers instead of as business people.
Right.
And you're not putting a sales hat on. You're not putting a customer service hat on. You're not doing any of that stuff. In fact, you're still complaining that you have to have it on your personal phone. When if you were a full business owner, you would understand that that's a business expense, not a personal phone. If you're using it to book your freight, get the benefit of it. So if they could just ask some questions, be a little curious instead of judgmental, be a little bit more collaborative, be a little bit more community minded, the growth that they would see is exponential and they would find themselves stop not blaming other people as much for what's going on and why some things are failing, and they might find solutions.
No, I totally agree. And I think so a lot of like I talk to a lot of shippers and they tell me, we're switching from being mainly broker to assets because of all the fraud and stuff that's happening. Totally get all that. But I think in the same token, like you were just saying, like truck driver, this has always been there. So why is this not something that you guys have attacked? Right now it's just the big boys playing with these shippers because the smaller ones are and to be frank, like they're hitting from point A to point B. They need somebody else to connect them. But you can grow it enough to where you have like some sort of automation in there, or you have like a network to lean on to add in, new owner operators or whatever into your branch. So yeah, it's an interesting take on all that because I think it's not talked about enough. It's not taught enough. It's not almost like bluntly said, like, yeah, you guys are not doing things professionally, and that's why there's a difference. And that's not everybody, obviously. There's a lot there's a lot out there that end up having a trucking company, and then they do go into a brokerage. And that is how they get their business to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference between you're just getting a one-off shipment and you're getting a relationship because you're not going to form a relationship with a broker that is not feeding you, that is not, giving you the juicy lanes that you want, but you're also not getting that kind of relationship by not communicating or not maybe negotiating, even educating to motivate something that I'm not a salesperson. I don't say that I'm a salesperson to shippers or customers because this is what they need. You're not selling something to somebody who doesn't need it. They know they need it. They need somebody to move their freight. What I'm selling them is options, and I'm trying to show them that I have the best ones. And that directly correlates with how I treat the drivers and the relationships that I have with the drivers.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to be somebody that is like, I have a problem with macro point. Don't call me after this and this and blah, 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 blah. Or you have a
Right.
dispatcher that couldn't care less and booked the truck and now they're gone, then that's not a relationship driver. That is a one-off driver that's going to help me out in a pinch, but never again. Thank you for your service. Move on. So, and that comes down to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. I was at a conference and somebody was saying how they really build their relationships with their truck drivers or their carriers by saying, like, if you've done a load, like say 3 times or something, you've done a load 3 times, great communication. That is when it triggers them to have a conversation of like, okay, hey, we actually have all these other lanes that we can now open the door to you on. So you're absolutely right. Like if you're not giving that communication, you're not giving that star level service, there are so many options out there that there are ones that do that, and those are going to be the ones that get the cream of the crop, lanes out there.
I mean, it just happened yesterday. I had one driver that did one lane for me at one point, and I'm like, hey, you did a really good job, and I have this pretty often. I'll keep you in mind. But then I had another lane for the same customer coming from a different point, coming from like Pennsylvania down to North Carolina, delivering to the same place that he picked up from. And he did not quite recognize me, even though
Okay.
they just did this for me the last month. But he was like, I think I remember your name, but I don't remember the lane. And I said, well, actually, you're picking up from Pennsylvania and you're going down to North Carolina. Tomorrow, when you deliver, I have the same lane you did last month. And so you can just drop off, get reloaded, and go because you
Yeah.
liked that lane and the rate was good. And so if they would just like keep their Rolodex going,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been, I basically routed him for the week.
Right.
So, and that made his life very, very easy.
And to be fair too, like for
People talk
drivers,
about freedom.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry. I was going to say, to be honest, like there's not tech out there that's affordable enough for drivers to kind of help them connect the dots. They're simply just searching load boards. So it is hard for them to do that. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're walking down the street and you're just walking along and somebody pulls up next to you in a car, opens up the door and says, hey, jump in. And you know them, so it's not like some stranger, but they're like, hey, come on in, jump in. Like the first question you're going to ask is, where are we going? You know? So when people think about or start to work with other people, that should be the first question that they ask to anybody that they're about to collab with or anybody that they're forming that kind of relationship. Where are you going? Because I don't know if that's where I want to go. And more
Right.
power to you getting there. But I mean, if you're going to be working with a broker that's only spot freight and only here and there, you're not going to keep in touch with them because they're probably not going to have the lane that you want. That's just, the odds are against you. But you have to ask the questions. What kind of freight is this? Is this a contract that you have? How often do you have it? Is the rate always the same all the time? Or do you have flexibility? If you're not asking those kinds of questions, then you're getting into a car and you're not asking the driver where you're going.
Yeah.
So that's how, if you really want to have a business mind with this and not just flying by the seat of your pants and going wherever the wind takes you, some people might like that. Then those are the questions you need to be asking.
Right. Especially whenever it's a brokerage market. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I do think like with my prediction anyways is like the English proficiency stuff that's happening, that is going to maybe switch it a little bit up where it's going to be more of a carrier market. And we haven't seen that for years. I mean,
No,
I was a broker for 8 years prior. How long have you been doing this?
20 years.
20 years. Okay, yeah. So you've seen all the cycles and done all the things. So like this is like the longest broker shipper market or whatever. And so I think that's going to, I mean, they're saying 10% of the drivers out there aren't English proficient. Taking 10% of the drivers off the road is going to make a big impact. If that actually stays put where like DOT actually shuts people down, like that's my big question that I posted the other day where it's like, is this just like a hot ticket buzzword because of what happened with that accident, or is it where this is really going to be an ongoing thing, kind of like e-logs or ELD stuff, like all that stuff actually did come into play where everybody just thought it was going to be a phase. Is this going to be forever, or is this going to be just short-lived? Because there's so many things that they enforce but they don't really enforce.
Choose to enforce it at some point and then they taper off because something else becomes important and shiny. But I think that, so the last time we lost, they say that it's more than 10%. It's probably along the lines of 30%, where
Oh wow.
not only is it not English proficient, but if they're going to crack down on visa holders, if they're going to crack down on non-domiciled, all of that,
Right.
then that that equates to probably closer to 30%.
Jeez.
But the last time we lost 30% of our workforce, that opened the door for a conveyor belt from the CDL schools of new CDL drivers. And they laxed the standards, they laxed the expectations. They just needed to get more drivers on the road because people were furloughed and the capacity went way down between
Wow.
essential and non-essential. There were so many drivers that were sitting at home on unemployment, eating the food that their wife is cooking for them and sleeping in their bed and, not having to deal with
Yeah.
truck stops. They got pretty cozy and they didn't try to even like go out and find the essential stuff versus the non-essential that they have been moving. So that just ushered in what we see now. And for a little while during that time, rates spiked. They did briefly, but then it tapered down and it has been declining ever since. So the last time we lost 30%, we got a whole bunch of less qualified people out the gate right away. Not only that,
Scary.
but when everything shut down, mega carriers decided they were going to offload their old equipment, sell it at incredibly inflated prices to these new drivers that were coming out of these schools. So now these drivers are, saddled down with huge truck payments, huge trailer payments, and the rates now, after the effects of all of that, do not commiserate with the payments that they're making, and they're
Wow.
struggling. They can't make their truck payments because it's flooded, and they bought that truck for way too much. Mega carriers went and injected all of that money, all those profits from the sales of those trucks, right into the stock market and leverage it. They can take out immense loans to buy a whole new fleet. They're getting tax breaks on the interest that they're paying on those loans, but still making money off of the money that they have invested because it's not real until they take it out. And they're not taking it out. They're just growing it so that they can borrow more. They don't care about their customers. They don't care about the freight. They don't care about truck drivers. That is just that's their passive income for the stuff that they really want to do. It has nothing to do with trucking. So they can hire these drivers right out of CDL school for pennies on the dollar, peanuts, while also, setting up other drivers for failure by selling them trucks that are way too expensive. And here we are. Now we have way too much capacity. We have drivers that are financed to the hilt and can't make their payments, can't pay for anything, let go of their house because they figure they can live in their truck that they can barely pay for.
Wow.
And now it creates this echo chamber amongst them that everybody else is to blame, and they're pointing next to each other instead of up. Because what could really solve it, if everybody is really excited right now about losing that much of the workforce and tightening up capacity, then the next step needs to be, how do we yank the leash on these CDL schools? And how do we divest the money from the mega carriers out of these CDL schools? Because coincidentally or simultaneously, there's been a huge decline in third-party recruiting for these carriers because they don't need it anymore, because they're getting it directly from the CDL schools and they don't have to pay $2,500, $5,000 a head to a third-party recruiter. They're just getting it right from that school.
And
And
even those schools are passing out CDLs like they're candy. I mean, like the more you pay, the faster you can get through the school, which I mean, and that's not everywhere, but there is a lot of them that are like that I know of anyways, in Florida and California and, states like that.
yeah,
It's
New
pretty
Mexico,
wild.
all of it.
Yeah, all those type of things. So how did you, I guess, get started into logistics? Is it always something you were into, or how did you get into this game?
So before I got into logistics, I was the shipper. So I was the one that was selecting a carrier, figuring out NMFCs and stuff like that. And most of what I shipped was LTL. It wasn't full truckloads or anything. And I was also dealing with some customs, Sabina Del Bene, coming in from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I got married and I have 3 kids under the age of 5.
Oh, wow.
Daycare was like,
Jeez.
but I mean, daycare was more than our mortgage payment.
Jeez.
And so I wasn't going to be able to work out of the house. I took a few months to work out of the house. We just, tightened up belts and stuff like that, and answered an ad, like a employment posting for a national sales rep for a logistics company. And even still, I didn't have a grasp of what that was, or what it would entail. I just knew I had some background or some experience in shipping. So
Mm-hmm.
I go, and it's one of the large 3PLs, not going to name names, and you sign this huge employment agreement, all of your paperwork and stuff. They train you for 2 days, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks, and then you go out on the floor in a sea of cubicles, and you have a whole bunch of sales reps around you, and you have 90 days to get on the board. You have
Wow.
60 days to get a shipper or a customer to even agree to work with you and commit to shipping with you and get a credit application in. And then if you haven't done anything 90 days, then you're gone. That's the
Wow.
turnover. And
That's
that's the
crazy.
biggest issue. Yeah, but I mean, it's the model of so many larger 3PLs.
For
So if
sure.
you are a national sales rep coming in, that's the best way because everybody else is going to say, well, you need 2 years experience, you need your own book of business. So if you don't have any of that, but you want to break into the industry, go with these people. They're going to pay
Yeah.
you a salary, they're going to train you, but you get a very minimal margin for or commission for what you make.
Yeah.
So if you look at TQL, if you look at models like that, you know, they're making maybe 15% off of all of their margins at the end of the month. And
Right.
that's accumulative. So you have to meet certain quotas. I think like you get a certain amount if you make 10,000 in profit. And
Mm-hmm.
you get a certain amount if you make 15, 20. It's tapered and tiered and then extra bonuses beyond that. But you don't see any of that until the end of the month once they
Right.
tally everything up. And you're also not truly a broker because you have a carrier sales team that's finding your trucks for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a customer service department that's making appointments and coordinating all of that. All you're doing is finding the customer. That's it. And once you do, you move on to the next one. So that's where I started out. And they wanted us to focus on LTL, and any company out there is going to want you to do that because they want to build up that volume so they can get better rates with all the R&L carriers, Old Dominion, FedEx Freight, all of that. That's what they want so that they can get the better rates, make more money on those margins because they have better discounts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, everything that came in my lap was full truckload, dry van, flatbed. That's it. And they gave you leads, you called and, you know, smiled and dialed. And
Right.
everybody that was on the other end of my phone was full truckloads. And they were like, oh, yeah, we'll use you. I don't know what it was. I don't know why they liked me, but they were like, oh, yeah, you're our girl here. But I had no idea what I was doing. That whole training class for 2 weeks doesn't teach you anything about brokering, market sourcing, rating. I rated things horribly. I rated things I lost so much money. I'm surprised I didn't get fired. They just liked it that I was getting these customers in. So
Do you
again,
feel
I'm
like
in
your
this.
shipper background made a difference with that because you knew how to like talk the talk, or you don't know, I guess, what stood out? Because to me, that would.
I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it was. I was dumb. I was
Mm,
stupid and I acted like it. So I would call these people, and instead of saying, "Hi, can I speak to blah, blah, blah," you know, like that
yeah.
you hear the salespeople, I was saying, "Hey, so I'm trying to reach this person. They're the ones that handle freight. That's my contact. And I don't know if they're still there, or
Yeah.
maybe you're the person I need to speak to, but I've been trying to reach them and maybe I just have it all wrong. Is there any way that you can help me? I'm a damsel in distress."
Right. Help me,
And
please.
like yeah, could you help me? Would you mind? Do you have a minute? You know? And I feel like so icky right now saying it out loud, but that got my foot in the door because
Yeah.
the first point of human nature is, oh, you need help, let me help you. You
Right.
know, poor thing, let me help you. And
Yeah.
I got through. And then once I did, that mask is off. Code switch to the incredibly competent person, right off right off the bat. Rule for myself is I don't ask for anything, I tell. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, hey, can I move your crate? And blah, blah, blah. No, I say, okay, well, this is where you are. You're telling me this is where you are in your process of bringing new providers on, bringing new brokers on, yada, yada. I don't fit
Right.
that right yet. I'm telling you that. But I'm also telling you that I'm really good with critical shipments. So I'm going to send you my information and I'll follow up with you in a week for the next time you have something critical. And then I'll show you my chops. I wasn't asking for anything. I wasn't begging
Yeah.
for an
You're going.
opportunity. No, I just told them how it was going to go. And I set an expectation. And there were some people that were like, yeah, yeah. And eventually I did get through because I was annoying. But there are others that were like, finally, somebody taking the reins and I don't have to deal with
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean? Somebody
Right.
who wants to take charge and take something off of my plate. And I set the expectation. I'm going to email you. I'll follow up with you at this time. And I did every step of the way, which establishes a pattern of trust, a pattern of behavior that they can see consistently. And
Yeah.
that's where trust is built. So there were some people that were like, I called 6 months almost every day and I annoyed the crap out of them. But it's because I knew that eventually there was going to be a time that somebody failed them. Somebody dropped the load or something like that. And they're going to say, well, what am I going to do now? Where's that annoying girl that calls me every day?
Blows me up. Yeah.
Let's see what she's made of. And so, I don't mind being that. Forgive me for being annoying as long as I'm moving your freight and I'm doing it the right way at a decent
Right.
rate.
Yeah, confidence is key. And I think as a woman in logistics, that is the difference between being successful and not. And not even just a woman, actually, just really anybody. You have to have the confidence to be like, I know I'm a rock star. I'm about to show you how I am a rock star. Are you ready to go? Because if you can't handle it, sorry, here we come. So I think that's a big difference. And then it gives them the confidence of like, hey, this person maybe they're terrible, but they sound great, and that makes a big difference in sales. Do you still have that same sales approach now, or have you kind of
No,
changed up how
because
you do
back
things?
then that was all hubris. Back then that was all, I didn't know what I was doing. I was horrible. Like we were talking about, this is what I'm going to do and I can do this. I was making so many promises that I could not keep. And
Yeah,
it was like, it was real immature behavior because it's like, I'll figure it out. And
yeah,
that's what a lot of people do. Yeah, I'll just say yes and I'll figure it out. I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. Too often in the very beginning, that did not pan out and I lost a lot of money. So finally, there were these two women that were sitting in that sea of cubicles next to me. And this was a place that had like free beer Fridays and like cornhole in the aisles and like
yeah.
costume parties and things like that. And these women were the ones that were sitting there looking at all of them in complete disgust.
Mhm.
Get to work.
Yeah,
So these women are seeing me hustle, seeing me bust my butt, seeing me lose a ton of money, and they were like, "Hey, so we're going to help you out. We're not friends, but we're going to
right.
help you out." So
Like,
they
bless
taught me.
your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Stop giving rates to people without talking to drivers first."
Mm,
Both of these women, they were like, take your rate from a driver, get an average, whatever,
right.
and then add your margin to it and give it to your customer. And I'm like, well, won't that make it more expensive? Blah, blah, blah. And they said no, because most of the time brokers are throwing numbers out there that are incredibly inflated and then browbeating these drivers. They
Right.
were like, if you want to make relationships with drivers, then you're going to honor their rate and you're going to remember that the shipper pays the bill. The shipper is paying for your services. Therefore, the shipper is the one that's supposed to pay the margin. It's not supposed to come out of the driver's pay. That way, more drivers will want to work
Interesting.
with you. You'll have much better options and your rate will be accurate. She's like, they said, even if you're taking that rate from that driver, the average one, from a good one, qualified, all that stuff, and you're adding
Mm,
15, 18%, they're like, you are going to make so much more money just off of the volume that you get
right.
and not off of, hey, I got 3 shipments a week at a 25% margin. I got 25 shipments this week because I won them all with a reasonable rate
Right.
with 150, $200 margin, 10 to 18%, and you're still making more money than all these people because you're getting more. So that's what I started doing. And I started making much better relationships with drivers. And eventually one of them was like, why don't you break out on your own? Why are you working with this shill of a company? and
Right.
and I said, oh no, I'm scared. I have a salary, I have benefits, I have all of this. And they're like, just
Hmm.
tell me what you make. And I said it, and he goes, break it on your own. You can pay for your own health insurance.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be fine. So he was like, if you keep on doing things this way, you're going to have drivers that want to work with you. You're going to have your customers. You're going to be fine. And he was right. And I still talk to him to this day. He's not a truck driver anymore, but man,
Yeah. That's
I
really cool though.
credit him.
Yeah. And sometimes you need somebody to kind of like smack you in the face, like wake up and you can do so much. You can do so much more. Like you're really limiting yourself. That's cool that you had, that person to reach out to you and tell you all those type of things.
Yeah. But I mean, the way that those women trained me and what this man said, it was absolutely right. Because if you think about the life cycle of having a customer as a broker, What was the average year span? You were a broker for 8 years.
Yeah.
How long would you say you typically kept a customer? What was that life cycle from first shipment to when they were like, hey, we're moving on?
So mine were, I mainly was in carrier sales. I did a little bit of customer sales, but very, very little. So we only had like I did postal freight and then I did copper and electrical wire. So my guys were like, I had the same customers almost the whole time. If we had a new customer, typically we like babied them until they became long term. But we did a lot of long terms. But I worked for a really small brokerage, like tops 20 million. So very small. Yeah. That's usually not how things are. I know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's probably, I would say, right around half of my book of business right now are people that have been with me the entire time
Yeah.
since I broke out on my own. And there are a couple of them actually went to a 4PL model to manage all of their freight, and that was all assets except for me. They're like,
Okay.
we can have this contract with you, but we're holding on to a broker. We're holding on to one just in case. And I've been that one because my rates have always been good and I've always still been making good money
Right.
because I'm not eating out of a driver's rate and I'm not inflating it incredibly just in case because you don't know how to rate something. So
Right. Right.
nobody that has worked under me has not made money in that model. And so when I do coach people or when I do give training or am a consultant for something, that is how I train them. So a lot of
Interesting.
the times drivers will say, well, not every broker is like you. Not every broker does things like you. Well, you know what? 2 brokers before me were, and they trained me this way. I've trained a whole bunch of brokers this way. So
Hmm.
find them because I
Yeah.
can't be the
They're
only
out there.
one. I know I'm not the only one, and I'm not the only person that they trained. You just got
Right.
to find the right one.
Right. And just like how we have to find the right drivers or even the right shippers, because there can sometimes be where you have to end a relationship with a shipper. Like we had a situation where there was like enough fraud happening with a shipper that we looked into it and it was like, this is like we have our fraud process and we don't have load stolen from anybody else. It is just you. Like you got something internal happening, something is going on. They wouldn't take responsibility. They wouldn't update anything. They wouldn't look in anything. And you got to cut ties. So I mean, even on a shipper level, sometimes you get bad shippers and you got to, cut ties with them. I guess since I'm like a fraud, whatever, always thinking about fraud stuff. How are you handling that and how have you seen that change throughout the years? And do you feel like having those relationship with the drivers have kind of kept you out of everything or do you still experience it?
Experienced something recently and touching back on what you just said about the customers. I had one customer that almost had a load stolen. It was hijacked, but we found it very quickly and we had authorities on it and we located it and remedied it. But my process is we go through our vetting system. I don't just use one. I have access to my carrier portal. I have access
Yay.
to Highway. I go on Carrier 411. I look at DAT directories. If there was graffiti about this driver somewhere in some overpass or whatever, I'm going to find it and I'm going to learn about it. And,
Yeah.
I take serious consideration in who I put on freight, especially since this was a copper wire customer and I know the value of that commodity. In addition to that, I put on every load, I have a information sheet, like a driver information sheet. I'm getting a copy of a license. I'm getting pictures of the truck. I'm getting pictures of the truck after it's been loaded. Driver information sheet has every single marking that there is on that door, on that trailer, everything, all of it.
Interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
doing my due diligence with this, but
Right.
that is absolutely for nothing if that shipper is not going to take a look
100%.
and compare. So, I mean, I might as well be writing down War and Peace on that driver information sheet if they're not going to read it. It's useless.
Yeah.
So this shipper, they have somebody who's a loader and who's been working there for a while. And he had a copy of the license that I sent over. And here's this guy that comes out of the truck and he looks just like him. And that's where it ended. There was nothing else that he verified on that sheet. So the pictures of the truck and everything starts
Hmm.
tracking looks good, but they spoofed the number, so it looks like it's going one way but it starts going another. And
Hmm.
that's when I'm like, hey, by the way, turn it around, where are you going, what are you doing?
Right.
And that's when we got authorities on it and whatnot. But I had a picture of that license plate, so we were able to track that license plate to where it was registered to. Apparently there was an employee there that quit back in May and just didn't show up, and then all of a sudden they had a license plate missing from the truck from one of their trucks, and then this guy is working somewhere else, and it starts unraveling, domino effect from there. So,
That's crazy.
yeah, I have really good people behind me that can investigate that stuff and have the time to,
Yeah.
because the way that things have changed for me is most of my day is vetting carriers and trying to prevent fraud instead of making cold calls.
Wow.
And, I want to just add loss prevention to my job title because that's essentially what we're doing. And as far as that shipper is concerned, the problem with having these kinds of relationships with these shippers, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a double-edged sword because when you've been working with them for so long and they have come to trust you and trust your judgment and trust your selection,
Mm-hmm.
they do feel comfortable just looking and verifying just the license and not everything else because they trust that you're not going to send anybody shady into them because you never
Right.
have before.
Right.
So that's where things go wrong. But one of the things that I look for, there are a lot of people that ask me like what your green flags are for carriers versus what your red flags are. This is very niche for me. Not a lot of people talk about it or have this kind of criteria when they're selecting somebody, but I am very wary of any carrier whose insurance expires within the next 30 days because I don't know if they're renewing. What's that?
I'm glad you bring that up. I just heard this at a conference, and I totally I'm on page. Keep going though. Sorry, tell your whole thing because I love this.
Yeah, so there was a broker, it was a colleague of mine. He constantly had stuff coming out of the port in Long Beach and going to Chicago. Very normal corridor. They had this relationship with this carrier. They would do like kind of a round trip. They'd pick up in Long Beach, deliver in Chicago. They would find him a lane to come back, and that's how it was for years and years. And finally one day the receiver contacted their customer or their provider, whatever, and said, "Hey, we're missing like millions of dollars worth of TVs." I think that's what it was. It was electronics.
Yeah.
We're missing all of this freight. Like we're only getting one or two pallets a pop whenever
Wow.
these what's going on? Like are they back ordered, overseas or something? And they're like, "No, we're sending you full truckloads." So, long story long, they realized that their driver or their carrier that they had a relationship with had no intention of renewing their insurance. They were getting out of the freight game altogether. So they were going to take that last 30 days, they were going to get a lick, and they were going to make as much money the not right way. So they would pick that stuff up in Long Beach, bring it up to Huntington Beach or San Bernardino, somewhere around there, and they would offload everything but two pallets, three pallets, doctor a bill of lading so that it only shows three pallets, and then bring it up to Chicago. And of course, they're signing for it because the bill of lading says three pallets. They're not marking off that like 24 pallets are missing,
Yeah.
because it is what it is, and they're getting it and signing for it. And then they would divert all of those down to Texas, and they were making millions of dollars for the last 30 days. And by the time the broker found out about it, they were long gone. Insurance expired, and that's it. So once I heard that story, I was like, no, I want somebody who's got like 5 months left,
Yeah.
at least.
I know.
So
I wish you could see payment status on that on top of that too, because I think that would be the next thing. Like, did you prepay for the whole 5 months, or are you paying monthly and then your payment stops and then they cancel coverage like that? But insurance won't show that. But no, the BOL manipulation is like I'm actually doing my whole fraud girl series on that in September because I think that's it is the biggest financial impact, and it is a lot of times a carrier that you're like you use and you trust. Like I know one person, they're like, I ate dinner with these people. Like I know this guy. I know him so well. And he just decided like, yeah, I'm gonna get out of the game and I'm going to leave the country and take all my money and go do whatever I want to. And because you trust him, you're like the broker reached out to them, was like, hey, were there shortages? Like, what's going on here? And so then he had the heads up of like, oh, they're on to me. So then he dipped out. And so then the guy called him and was like, what the heck, dude? Like, what did you steal all this? He's like, yeah, I'm in blah, blah country and I'm living my best life. Like,
I admitted to it.
yeah, totally admit to it. I was like, and he was like, yeah, I
I'm gonna
met this.
margarita on you.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, yeah, I met this guy at a truck stop. He told me how to do all this stuff. And like, it can easily happen like that. Like, they're not making enough money where the crime pays so much more that it's like they can just dip out and do whatever. So it is like a wild game where it's hard to know who to trust. To me, until you get to like pallet tracking, that's like the only way to really stop that. But then you got to get the shippers involved, and that's like a whole nother, you know,
pay for the
Cross the
units
road.
for it. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that are trying to implement that because I said it myself. Like, I'm tired of relying on drivers turning on MacroPoint or, I don't trust your Samsara as far as I can throw it. I don't
Yeah.
trust any of it. Okay. Me, I don't trust anybody.
Yeah. I know.
So I don't even trust my shippers half the time. But that's good because, it's keeping me on my toes and it's making me dot my I's and cross my T's. And everybody else benefits from me being very skeptical of everybody else. So if I am like in a conversation with you and you're talking and all of a sudden my eyes go, that's my tell. That's
Yeah.
when you know I don't believe you. I don't
Yeah.
believe a word you're saying. And I'm going to take you down with me as I go through that wormhole of the trip that you're taking us on as you try to lie your way out of it. But I'm still going to ask questions because I would rather be safe than polite and just allow you to lie to me just because I don't want to seem rude by accusing you of lying to me. I trust my gut and my instincts and my eyes and ears more than I will ever trust you. And that took a long time to cultivate. But in the fraud world, regardless if it's freight or identity theft or anything like that, no matter what, across the board, the common denominator is that 80% of freight is committed by somebody who's close to you because they
Yeah.
have access to all of your information. They have access to documents, all of that stuff. Same thing applies with drivers and same thing applies with shippers.
Yeah.
Because if a shipper is on the hook for a loss of $200,000 because their loader didn't check something, then immediately it's going to be like, well, the broker chose that person.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're the first person they're throwing under the bus so that they're not liable and they have some recompense.
Right.
So you have to be prepared for that. I trust you to do that more than I trust you to have my back, and that's what's keeping me safe. And that's why I keep receipts, why I keep documents, all of that stuff. And I think truthfully that women are better about that
Yeah.
because we don't
I
work on handshakes.
I think we're always skeptical. So that helps.
We're always skeptical, but also like our credibility and our word and our experience and our intellect is always questioned. Like that's always the tax. Oh, what do you know? You're just a girl. What do I know? Let me show you. Let me show you the portfolio of what I know. This text from April 24th of 1974 will say. But we always have to do that. So I always come prepared. I anticipate the lack of trust that you're going to have. So I just bring it with me right off the bat. And
Yeah.
I may look competent, but in truth, I'm just prepared and I anticipate you not trusting me as much as I don't trust you. I like
Yeah.
you. We work well together, but you benefit from me looking at everybody suspect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's definitely the way to look, and then having a process in place where, like you said, like if you do see this happening, what do you do from there? And I think having not deviating from the process just because like this weekend coming up is Labor Day, so it's like, oh, I want to get out of here, I want to go do whatever. Yeah, but you have to still follow all your things because that's when things really happen. And it's the same thing for a shipper whenever they have things happen to them. It's like, yeah, all your guys were wanting to leave, and they're just throwing things on the truck. They don't care. But no, very crazy. So
holiday
yeah,
weekends were notorious for drivers having to turn around because the wrong stuff was put on the truck.
right.
Notorious for it. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm waiting for it, for
Yeah.
somebody to call me and say, hey, they put stuff that's supposed to go to Arizona to your truck that's going to Massachusetts. So, what I get
Either
a
turning
lot,
around or rerouting. Always. Always, always, always.
right, always. I have one other wire cable customer, and usually he brings stuff inbound from Massachusetts to Texas. But at one point, they sent him something wrong or sent him something, the incorrect stuff. So he had to send it back. And so he's only used to Northeast rates coming out of Northeast because people are like, we got to get out of North.
Right.
He's not used to Texas to the Northeast, especially on a holiday weekend when something is going to be held an extra day up there. So he's like, hey, can you give me a rate? We had to send this back. And I was like, it was like Laredo to Massachusetts. And I said, it's going to be like $5,500 at least because they're going to be holding on to it an extra day.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What? Ouch! Blah blah blah." And I said, "Hey, how often am I wrong? How long have we been working together?" He's like, "Okay, fine. Then send in your driver." Not even 10 minutes later, he calls me And he says, "Hey, this guy, this broker said that he could do it for $4,300. So just pause. He's going to send somebody in today for $4,300. It was a Thursday and deliver on Tuesday." And I said, "He doesn't have a truck." And he was, and this is I don't disparage other companies. I don't do that, but this is my relationship with him. But I
Yeah.
was like, "He doesn't have a truck." He says, "Well, why do you say that?" And I said, "It's a holiday weekend going to the Northeast, holding it an extra day." I said, "Who is this guy?" I said, "He's just rating it off of RateView. That's all he's doing." And RateView doesn't take into consideration like the desirability of the lane. All it takes into consideration is what factoring companies have reported up to 10
Right.
days prior. I said, "So that's not accurate." I said, "Who is this guy?" And he told me the name of the company. I'm not going to say it. But I was like, "Oh my God." I
Yeah.
said, how many times have I let you down? And who is this guy to you?" And he was like, "Well, come to think of it, he's always saying that he has a truck and then it's postponed to the next day or next week or the truck falls off." And I was like, "Okay, so I'm sending my guy in for $5,500."
Yeah. So we're good.
And he was like, "Yeah, send him in." But
That's
I brought it up like this is a holiday weekend. A lot of people are very relaxed on, their policies and where they're parking, Like it could be a totally innocent driver, but he's going to a truck stop, parking, putting out his little portable grill and grilling up some glizzies and everything, and next thing you know, he's got like somebody out the back of his truck cutting the seal. So
right.
I was like, it's not even, it may be about the rate, but really, if you're gonna have a refund of 150 grand on this stuff,
Yep.
you know,
You never know.
do you want to spend like $1,200 more, or do you want to lose $150,000? Which one is
Right.
it?
And deal with the headache and all that stuff. Right. Like it's a lot more than even just the money whenever loads get stolen. It's like they got to deal with as a shipper, they got to deal with the receiver not getting things. They got to redo everything. Like it's like, it is wild when I talked to so many people, especially with me like selling my care portal. And then whenever I talk to them, they're like, oh yeah, well, we don't normally do this or that, or we just look at this one spot. And if they don't have a freight guard, they're good. I'm like, that's all, that's all you do. You've had nothing.
Freight guard yet?
Right. I'm like, well, you're the first victim. Get ready because you are dumb. No, not dumb, but like you don't have anything in place and you're like, yeah, I'm like, you're bound to have something happen. And the fact you have it, you're just really lucky. No one, a scamster hasn't found you yet. Cause when they do, they're going to go to town. But yeah, anyways, pretty crazy.
Like too many people are going on the landing page of Carrier 411 or Highway or My Carrier Portal and just looking at that. Like, oh, they're set up, nothing red and blaring. They don't scroll. They're not checking what kind of insurance they have. Like this person's trying to book a reefer load, but they don't have, refrigerated breakdown insurance. You know what I mean? Like they're not looking at that. They're not looking at, you know, how many trucks are in their fleet, but how much they're factoring, and if it's not a partial carrier, then that's a red flag. They're not looking at that stuff. Like you have to really analyze a little bit more and find a balance between that kind of analytical stuff and not getting analysis paralysis so you actually make a decision. But like you have to scroll. Like there's a scrolly thing on your mouse
For
for
a
a
reason.
reason. So you go down and look at the really relevant information. That in itself right there will eliminate so much of your own fraud at your own doing because you're not paying attention.
And everyone's trying to get everything done so fast. And fast is great. I mean, you have to be fast, but you also have to, before you officially send, you do have a moment in time before you send a pickup number. Even if you assign the load, send a rate sheet, hide that pickup number. And until you send the pickup number, you have a long time to be able to double check, triple check, make sure they're tracking, make sure they're doing all the things before you give that out. That's your last, like, my last thing I'll hold on to, before actually getting them, the actual load. So, no, your advice is great. I think the insurance thing with the 30 days, I think that's going to be the next big thing because so whenever I was at Reliance Partners, they had a summit. They were talking about how the majority of fraud that they've seen with them with claims is that they had a policy is about to expire. The person sold their MC. And they're like, oh, well, we'll renew it, with the insurance company. Like, I'll give you the money for for this last month since you have the last month or whatever. And then like, I'll pay you for your cell phone. They don't report anything saying that they bought it. And then they go to town and do whatever. And then they close up shop, right away. So a lot of the ones that are selling the MCs to, and not displaying anything, that's what they're doing is those last 30 days. So
And you have to ask Costco when they're buying those MCs, like what comes with it. What comes with that MC? Like, are they getting all the documents? Are they getting all the records? Because, I mean, we have to hold on to that stuff. And if they're somebody who's a bad actor and now they have access to all those records, we talked about doctored BOLs. Now we can talk about doctored rate confirmations and
Right.
what that blows open for us. So, what is coming with that purchase of the MC number? Is it coming with all of those customers and all of that information? Is it coming with all of those rate confirmations and contact information of brokers and things like that and other drivers? Like, what have we blown wide open here? And I think that if we pay a little bit more attention to that stuff, like what comes with, they did this, but it doesn't just end there. What does it come with? What does it
Mhm.
mean? Then we can start not being so reactive to the fraud and making solutions to the fraud that's already in place, and actually start making plans and procedures for the fraud that is to come that they haven't even started yet.
Right.
Because everything that we have in place right now is incredibly reactive to what has already occurred. And they're
100%.
already on to the next thing.
Yeah. We just
So
don't know it yet. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if we ask the whys and like pull the string a little bit and open the sliding doors and, open up that bloomin' onion, we're gonna find way more outlets for them to commit fraud that we can start preventing now. So
Yeah. And I
that's
think
that's my
even like
position
we
on
did
it
a
right
bad
now.
Yeah, and I think we did a bad job at educating truck drivers and carriers on a fraud period. They see everything, and a lot of times the drivers aren't in on it. A lot of times it's something like they had like a bad dispatcher or whatever. Like there's a whole bunch of different things, or like they think it's a legit broker, but it's a double brokerage situation. But we did not do a good job of educating carriers at all, and even like educating them on if you're going to sell your MC, how to handle that. Because like even legally, you can't sell your MC without selling your assets. I don't even know how many drivers I've spoken to, and they're like, I didn't even know that was a rule. I mean, yeah, it's literally a law. Like that's how it's supposed to be, and nobody's educating them. So
I
I think
agree.
that's yeah. Please, I mean, and they're not like most of them don't even speak English, so it's like you can't even expect them to know all these things. But somehow figuring out a way to educate everybody, and how do we do that? I don't know, but I'm glad you're making content online, and that's kind of why I'm doing this.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of us, there are several brokers on TikTok at least, including myself. Every so often I have to like repost or redo a video on how carriers can spot fraud. First
Yeah,
line, if it looks too good to be true, probably is.
for
And
sure.
and you can sit there and you complain, our driver will sit there and complain that a broker is calling them.
Hmm.
Why are you calling me? Why are you calling me on the road? Whatever. Why aren't you calling the broker? Why aren't you doing that check? If you're gonna complain about double brokers and that word broker is in there, but you're taking a load from a broker, then why aren't you taking that next step
Right.
and putting all of that control over your business in somebody else's hands without that verification? I would welcome it. I would welcome it so much if drivers would call me to verify, hey, I'm doing this load. Are you actually with this company or are
Right.
you with somebody else? Did you
Yeah.
actually talk to this dispatcher? Do you know who they are? Do you know that it's for this MC number? I would welcome it. I would applaud them. But
Yeah.
whenever I call and verify, hey, is this dispatcher part of your organization? Can we verify them? Because whatever. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you." How
Yeah.
grateful they are for it. Why aren't you doing it? We would we would be so proud and happy if you invested just that 5 minutes and respected your profession and respected your own professionalism and yourself and your wallet by just making a 5-minute phone call. And
Yeah. It
that
makes
is
a
the
difference.
first line of defense for fraud for drivers.
Right.
It's
I
just a simple
agree.
phone call.
That and whenever they get a blind shipment, like you should vet the crap out of a blind shipment. Like something most, I mean, the fact that we even still do this blows my mind. I think there's got to be a better way to doing things, but the blind shipment piece, like there should be a better process in place to vet a blind shipment, and there's not. And then, I mean, there is, but it's like people don't know about it. But that's like I could
Well,
talk about that for hours.
I do blind shipments because I work with food brokers.
Okay.
So if I know that the majority of it is blind shipments.
Yeah.
So I will always disclose that to them. You're going to get a BOL when you go and pick this up, and it's going to look very different. I'm telling you, your safest bet is to just follow the instructions on your rate confirmation. That's never going to put you in trouble if you just follow the contract that you signed, because you didn't sign a contract for a BOL. You signed the contract with the rate confirmation. So follow those instructions and you will not go astray. But I'll always tell them this is a blind shipment. If I have a copy of the blind BOL, I'm going to send both
Yeah.
to them, just so they know this is a pickup BOL, this is the transit BOL. And so they're not going in there confused or what. There have been a couple of times where the rate confirmation had one temperature and then the BOL had another one. And there was potential claims there because the stuff's going to spoil.
Right.
So you have to really like push home, follow the instructions on your rate confirmation, but disclose everything, over disclose, and you can't go wrong.
With your blind shipment, so is it where the shipper shows a different address or the receiver? Because typically, to me, the receiver should be showing the right address. And like that doesn't really change, but the pickup would be different, right?
Well, sometimes it's a double blind shipment. So they don't want the shipper to know where it's going, and they don't want the receiver to know where it came from. They just want their name plastered all over it because they're protecting their interest and their stake with that customer, because there's
Yeah.
nothing. It's just like freight brokers. There's nothing that prevents a driver. So what? A carrier agreement. There's nothing that prevents a driver from going to that shipper and saying, "Call me next time. We got
Yeah.
you. We're going to
Yeah.
save you some money." There's nothing that prevents that. But there's also nothing that would prevent a shipper from contacting a receiver and saying, "Cut these people out. We're going to help you out. And we'll just do
Right.
direct, wholesale, whatever." So they're just protecting their stakes in the game. And it's the same thing as drop shipping. Just change that word. The blind is the thing that incites some kind of like suspicion. So
Right.
change it from blind to drop. It's the same thing that Amazon does. It's the
Right.
same thing that anybody does when you're buying something online at a storefront. So alleviate some of the suspicion, but then you have to communicate at that point as well. And
Yeah. Communicate.
if the customer themselves just want to keep, two people from cutting them out of the mix, they're just protecting their interest. And that's
Right.
capitalism.
And that's America for you.
That's America. Free, fair market.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. So tell everybody how they can find you, how can they watch your stuff, like how awesome you are, all that stuff.
Well, I am pretty rad. You can find me. My website is smallworldbrokers.com. My TikTok handle is at smallworldannique. My LinkedIn is Annique Lesage, and I have Instagram under Small World Ventures LLC. I rarely post there. I'm not a
Gotcha.
grammer.
Yeah.
But TikTok is where most of my content is, and you'll find link trees everywhere. So if you want to get a hold of me, book a coaching appointment. I give 30-minute free consultations. And also, I offer promo codes or discounts for Truck Parking Club. So if you're a driver and you want to get a discount on your safe, secure parking, I offer that to drivers. And if you are interested in going to Broker Carrier Summit, where I will be in October, there is a discount code in my link tree as well. So you can get a discount off of your tickets and also off of sponsorship if you want to sponsor.
That's awesome. Well, killer. I love it. I will see you at Broker Care Summit. I'm excited. So you'll have to hop on the live podcast too and say a quick hi while
I
you're there.
will.
Okay, good. I'll
I
hit
had
you
a
up.
good time today. Thank you so much for having me. You're
Yeah,
great.
for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Tell me everything. Everything.
Tell me everything.